Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make some bridesmaid wine glasses. So here you'll see me just typing in all the names. I'm just typing in the first names and then picking out a font. We're going to weld them and then make compound path on all of them. I find that the best size for this is about 3 inches. Sometimes you can go a little over if you have to, depending on what the name is and how it looks. So you're just going to have to do that by sight. Now we're going to type in all of the titles, pick another font. I find that a nice not script font goes well with a really cursive-y one. So we're going to do the same thing. You want it about 3 inches wide. I've made thousands of these wine glasses, and I find the best combination is just 2 colors just to keep it simple. So you're going to put it down on your mat. I don't always use frog tape to put my vinyl on my mat, but as soon as I went to go do this project, I found out that I didn't have any stick to my mat. So you're going to arrange all of your names on the top there, and then I just got a little heart from the Silhouette store and used that as my little accent piece. And we found the right cut setting, which I'll list down below in my description for you, so you guys don't have to remember it right now, and then set it to cut. You're always going to have weddings coming up every single year, so this is a really good thing to offer in your business if you're looking for something new to offer, because like I said, they're always going to be happening every year, and they make for great revenue because your order value is always going to be, you know, around $50, I find, in my experience. And I was making these for years. I started in 2015, and I mean, when I made a lot of them for a lot of people, they were a lot of fun. And like I said, once you start offering different ones, it really works out well. I find that black is the perfect secondary color for any wedding colors. So here you just see I made a little nick, and usually it's a lot easier to just flip it over and follow the nearest full line, but I didn't account for how new my roll was, and it kept wanting to roll up, and the painter's tape did not really actually work, but it helped out a little bit. Got the job done. So I'm just going to cut off exactly how much I needed, just a little bit extra just in case, and then put it back on my mat. Again, I don't usually use frog tape, but I have to restick my mat, which I do have a video from years ago that I had done, and I'm going to have to do a new one. Clearly, I have to restick my mats anyway. Sometimes with rolled vinyl, you'll see that you have little bubbles. You can push those out, especially if you're already close to the edge, and you're going to want to before you cut because it'll mess up your cut job. I had already previously found out that my cut job was just a little bit off, so I increased the force just a little bit. And again, I'll leave all of these cut settings for you guys in the description of this video to make it easier for you. But just like the names, you're just going to set up the titles just the same. And if you notice that there's a grid pattern on the back of my cut screen, those grids will line up exactly to your cutting mat. So if you need to count those and find out how much vinyl you need by using the cut mat, I'm always doing that. You just count, silly me, count the little squares, sorry. When I was making these full time, I would charge $10 for a simple wine glass. I got them at the Walmart for 90 cents when I bought a case of 12, I think it was. And I mean, you get a whole set of 5. Sorry, I don't even know my words. You get a set of 5, and that's $50 right there, and they're so easy. They really take no time at all to make, and they really do last. I still have mine from my wedding, and I got married in 2016. I don't even want to back count to see how many years it is, but it's quite a lot. So then you're just going to cut out your cutted vinyl, the vinyl that you had cut. Woohoo! I am doing great with words today, you guys. I like to do these things while the other stuff is cutting. And I couldn't find my spatula, so we're going to use the little hooky thing, but that's okay because it's going to get the job done too. But preferably, I like to use my Silhouette spatula for basically everything. Spatula and tweezers, and I can rule the world when it comes to weeding. So here you're going to see me kind of splice it. You can't really tell from the camera angle, but what I'm doing is just cutting little lines between everything just in case I have problems weeding it, and I did wind up having some problems weeding it, so that you don't have to worry about taking up your whole the whole piece of vinyl if something goes wrong. Oh, there it was. You can see I just a little bit, but that's why I cut those lines. So in case anything like that happens, it's only affecting one little area and not my whole cut piece, my whole piece of vinyl, my whole cut. Oh, well, I'm going to stop trying on that one, aren't I? but you're just going to take it all off and then weed out the little parts. I love weeding vinyl. I had gone back in to recut this, by the way. This was not the first one I cut on camera because I realized my cut settings were a little off, and when I did, it made it so much easier. I will literally save every tiny scrap of vinyl I can, and I usually come in handy. So you're just seeing me do the same thing. I'm scoring any bigger parts that I can so that in case anything pulls up with it, it's only affecting that little area and not my whole piece. I love to weed vinyl. This used to be the best part. I would cut all day and spend a whole day weeding. It was quite satisfying, actually. So here you saw me flick the bee off, but on the backing, you can kind of see an indent of where it was, so I was able to line it right back up. And now we're gonna apply them to our cups. First, we gotta take off all of the labels. I use my Scotty peeler for everything. It takes them off so easy and it takes the whole thing off, so I don't have to worry about any residual little label messing me up. Unless you're using the same glasses over and over like I used to, you're gonna wanna take these off, like cut them apart, and then kind of size them up to get a bird's eye view, a little eyeball of where you want it to be, and then we're gonna use water and fill the cup up. The water is going to ensure that we have a straight line and it works perfect every single time. Time to grab your contact paper or whatever transfer paper you use. I used to use just like shelf liner, but now I use the Silhouette brand. You can use it over and over again a lot of times. So you just pick up your first word. You always start with the titles, and then you're gonna see how I go in the center there first, and then I'm picking it all off. I'm not putting the whole thing on at once. I find that when you do that, you wind up going a little lopsided, and you won't even notice until you're all done. It's so annoying. So I just take it a little by little. I do the 2 letters in the middle first, and then I start going to either side. And then I use the same exact water for every cup so that you always know they're always about the same level. Sometimes you'll lose a drop or two, but it really doesn't affect it. You can also cut your contact paper too, or transfer paper, whatever, for this part, but I don't know. This is how I've always done it, and it's probably how I always will if I ever make these again. And then you just keep doing the same thing for all the titles. Bridesmaid and Maid of Honor pretty much are always at the same level for me. It's the bride one that sometimes changes. And this one, I definitely don't like it as tall as I made it. Usually I will flatten it down a little bit if that makes sense. But for all intents and purposes, this is going to look perfect. So again, you saw me do the same thing. I put the middle down and then just start working on one side or the other so that you can follow that water line perfectly. Sometimes while you're applying it, it may look like you're doing it straight, but then when you're all done and you sit back and realize it was not straight at all. So I'm just eyeing it up to see where I think it'll look good compared to the other cups, because the word bride is a lot taller than all the other titles were, but that's okay because usually the bride's going to want to stand out anyway. And we're just doing the same thing. We're starting in the middle, and then we're working our way to one side. And you can even go back and forth if you want. There's no wrong or right way on which side to start on for this. You just really want to make sure you're getting the ends of those letters lined up with that water. Again, you just really want to make sure the bottom of that title letter is lined up with the water. The names are the easy part because when you're doing it in this style, which is my most popular style when I was doing it, I'm literally going to use the title to line up the name. So just like we did with the water, I'm just lining the bottom of the name up with the top of the title. And sometimes you'll have a super cursive font and some letters will dip lower. Just use your eye and line it up as best you can. Whatever you think looks best, I'm telling you it's going to look awesome no matter what. And then you're just going to keep repeating the same thing. I find that the hangy letters, like the Y's and the little hangy do's, they look really good overlapped on top of the title. Of course, that's a personal preference. But again, I've sold thousands of these and everyone has always loved them just the way they are. So you see, I used a little cut method this time because I was getting to the end of my project and I didn't really care about the cuts in my transfer paper. But usually I'll keep my transfer paper pretty intact until I'm at the end. And you just want to make sure you're pressing down every single piece of the vinyl. You don't want any air bubbles or gaps in there because if any moisture gets underneath that, these cups will not last. So again, really take your time. and make sure that you're rubbing the whole thing. If your fingers start hurting, you can definitely use a squeegee for this. I've just always found that my fingers work the best. And we're just lining up the names with the titles there and making sure everything looks good to the eye, because at this point, that's what we're doing. We're not using the water to level us out. We're just using the title, which should already be super level because we used the water method. Making sure that the name is super centered is so important, because a lot of times the name might be a little smaller or bigger than the title depending on the font that you use. So you see me going a few different times just to make sure before I press it all down that I liked where my positioning was, but you really want to make sure you're as center as possible. Now for the little hearts, I started with the transfer paper, but a lot of times I'll just use my fingers for this, but you really want to make sure that you're not touching the sticky side as much as possible. But here you see me use my fingers. It's just a habit for me for these little parts. Here I'm touching it way too much, but usually I'll just touch it a tiny bit and get it right on there perfect. And again, you just want to make sure you're centering it up as good as possible. I've always eyed this up, and I've never really used measuring tape for that, but it's always worked out really well for me. And that's it, you guys. You could do as many of these in whatever titles. Come up with some cool, crazy titles, and really make people want these. Take some pictures, offer them to maybe a friend so you can get some mock-up pictures to use for marketing later on. But these are amazing gifts. Even if you don't want to sell them and you just want to make a gift for your friend, these are perfect for everyone's wedding, really. You just get their wedding colors, and again, you can't go wrong, and they're not expensive to make, and they don't take any time at all.